Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're heading to the Grand Canyon.
Oh, the Grand Canyon.
But not for the usual stuff. We're
Yeah.
not talking about, like, the views or the hikes or any of that.
No. We're going deeper.
We are going way deeper.
Much deeper. We're going into the rocks.
The rocks themselves.
Yeah, so everyone knows it's like visually incredible.
Of course.
But
It's stunning.
what we're going to talk about is the stories that the rocks can tell us.
Yes, exactly.
About the history of the Earth, no less.
Absolutely.
So to do that, we're going to be looking at a specific rock formation called the Tonto Group.
The Tonto Group, yes.
And it's fascinating.
It is. I mean, when I was reading about it, it was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, this is more than just rock.
It's more than just rocks.
Yeah.
First of all, it has, like, a ton of fossils.
Tons of fossils.
And also, geologists are, like,
Still figuring it out.
still figuring it out.
Yeah,
It's like, people think of geology as like, oh, it's done. We know about the rocks.
Right.
This is not the
Yeah,
case.
Not at all.
With this, so it's a really cool story. It's a little technical, some of the stuff we're going to be talking about,
A little bit.
but we're going to pull out the cool parts.
Absolutely. We'll break it down.
Yeah, and like explain it. So
It's
like,
done.
yeah.
Yeah.
So to kind of start us off, what is the Tonto Group? Like, what's the big deal with it?
So the Tonto Group is, imagine this, like a 5-part history book
Okay.
from the early Cambrian period. So we're talking like 540 million years ago.
Okay.
Each layer is like a chapter,
Wow.
and it captures a unique snapshot of Earth's, ancient past.
So it's like we've got this 5-chapter book. We're going to go through it.
Yes, chapter by chapter.
What's the first chapter?
All right, so the oldest chapter, the very first one, is the 60-mile formation.
Okay.
And this one's a little bit of a wild card
Ah.
because you see a mix, like a jumble of different rock types.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it suggests a landscape that was constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
So picture this. Rivers changing their course, lakes forming and drying up,
Oh, wow.
even shallow seas kind of encroaching on the land.
So it's not like the Grand Canyon we see today, which is like very static.
Not at all.
This is
It's much more dynamic back then.
chaotic.
Chaotic, yes. A great word.
So then what happens in chapter 2?
Okay, chapter 2, things start to settle down a bit.
Okay.
This is the Tapeats sandstone.
Okay.
Much more uniform,
Mm.
made almost entirely of sandstone, as you might guess.
Okay.
So imagine like a vast ancient beach
Oh, wow.
stretching along a coastline.
So we go from this crazy mixed up
Exactly.
landscape to like a beach. What does that tell us?
That tells us there was a big shift.
Okay.
It's called the Cambrian marine transgression.
Ooh, fancy.
Basically, sea level started to rise and it slowly swallowed up the land.
So I'm picturing like if I was standing on this beach like 540 million years ago,
Yeah.
I would see the water like coming.
Slowly creeping in over millions of years.
Oh, that's kind of creepy.
It's a gradual process, but it really changed everything.
Yeah.
And as the water got deeper, the environment transformed completely.
Oh, okay.
And that's reflected in the next chapter, the Bright Angel Formation.
So we've got this like rising sea level. It's coming in. It's getting deeper. What happens in the Bright Angel Formation?
Well, the Bright Angel Formation is made of these finer grained sandstones and shales.
Okay.
So instead of that pounding surf you had on the beach,
Right.
you're in a calmer, deeper, offshore environment.
Mm-hmm.
So picture mud and silt slowly settling on the seafloor.
So we went from chaotic to beach
Yeah.
to like out in the ocean.
Deeper water, exactly.
What's next?
All right, so the sea level keeps rising.
Oh, no.
And we get to the Moab Formation.
Oh.
This one is primarily limestone,
Okay.
which tells us we're in a fully marine environment now.
Okay.
And it was teeming with life.
Ooh.
So imagine vibrant coral reefs and countless other marine organisms building up layer upon layer of calcium carbonate,
Mm-hmm.
which eventually formed this thick limestone.
So it's getting lively.
Oh, yeah, things are getting busy.
Okay. So like chaotic, beach, deeper water, now like full on ocean life.
That is,
What happens at the end? What's the last chapter?
Okay, so the final chapter is the Frenchman Mountain Dolostone.
Okay.
This one's interesting because it was only recently added to the Tonto Group.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
So they're still figuring out.
They're still figuring it out.
You like the Grand Canyon is like this iconic thing,
I know.
and they're still like,
It just shows you how much we're still learning
wow.
about these ancient landscapes.
Yeah.
And the Frenchman Mountain Dolostone,
Okay.
it tells us that the environment became tidal.
Okay.
So you have fluctuating sea levels,
Okay.
creating this striking pattern of alternating light and dark rock.
So it's like if I'm standing there in the Grand Canyon today,
Yeah.
I'm looking up through like millions of years. It's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. You're not just seeing rocks, you're seeing a timeline,
Yeah.
a visual representation of hundreds of millions of years of Earth's history.
And each layer is like a snapshot.
A snapshot, a window into a vanished world.
And it's not just like rocks and sediments.
Yeah.
We're talking about life.
Exactly.
Like especially the Bright Angel Formation that you were talking about.
Yeah.
It captures like one of the most significant events in the history of life on Earth.
You're talking about the Cambrian Explosion?
Yeah.
Yes. Like, that's when things get really crazy.
It does. It gets wild.
Yeah, so we're diving into a time when life on Earth went through this, like, period of crazy fast evolution.
Rapid evolution and explosion of new life forms.
All right, so the Bright Angel Formation
Yes.
gives us, like, a front row seat.
Front row seat
Suit
to
taste.
this evolutionary extravaganza.
But before we get there,
Yeah.
before we get lost in the creatures,
Yeah. What else should we know?
well, there are a few more things about these rock layers themselves that are pretty dramatic.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are we missing? So we've got like all this rising sea level,
Right.
changing landscapes.
Yeah.
But the stars of the show really are the creatures, right?
Absolutely.
Who are living in all this.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the Cambrian period,
Yes.
which is when the Bright Angel Formation was laid down.
Exactly.
And this is when we get what's called the Cambrian
the
Explosion.
Cambrian Explosion, yeah.
Okay, that
And
sounds...
it's pretty dramatic. So, like, paint me a picture.
All right, so picture this.
Yeah.
A world just teeming with all these bizarre creatures.
Okay.
Most of them totally unlike anything alive today.
Oh, wow.
But there's one group that really stands out,
Okay.
and that's the trilobites.
Ah, the trilobites.
Yes.
I remember those from, like, grade school.
Yeah.
They're like,
Little armored bugs.
yeah, like awesome prehistoric roly-polies.
That's a great way to put it.
They were arthropods, like insects and crustaceans.
Okay.
And they came in, like, all these crazy shapes and sizes.
Really?
Yeah, some were tiny, some were huge.
Wow.
Some had, like, these spiky armors. Some had giant eyes.
So it was like the Cambrian fashion show down there.
Exactly. They were strutting their stuff.
Okay, but you said that the Bright Angel Formation like helps us understand this Cambrian explosion in new ways. So what's the big reveal? What's going on?
So for a long time, the thinking was that new species just kind of appeared all at once during the Cambrian explosion,
Okay.
like across the whole globe.
Mm-hmm.
But when we zoom in on the trilobite fossils, specifically in the Bright Angel Formation, we see a different story.
Okay, so what are the Tonto Group trilobites telling us?
They're telling us that evolution during this time was much more complex,
Mhm.
much more dynamic.
Okay.
It wasn't this like uniform global burst.
Right.
It was more like a series of overlapping
Okay.
localized events.
So different things were happening in different places.
Exactly. Different trilobite species were thriving in different regions at slightly different times.
Okay, so it's not just A to B. It's
Right.
like all this crazy stuff happening.
More like a tangled web.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
species branching off, evolving in their own way.
Wow. And like we know this or we're figuring this out because of all this new technology
Right.
that's like changing how we understand all this stuff.
Absolutely. Technology is revolutionizing our understanding of the Tonto Group in general.
So what kind of technology? What are we talking about?
Well, one of the most groundbreaking is this thing called UP baiting of zircon crystals.
Zircon crystals.
Yeah, think of them like tiny time capsules
Okay.
trapped within the rock layers.
I'm listening.
So zircons contain uranium,
Mm-hmm.
and uranium decays into lead at a very predictable rate.
Okay.
So by measuring the ratio of uranium to lead
Right.
in these crystals, scientists can figure out the exact age of the rock
Oh, wow.
with incredible precision.
So it's like a little clock.
It's like a super accurate geologic clock.
That's amazing.
It is, and what it's shown us about the Tonto Group
Yeah.
is that it formed way faster than we thought.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're talking a few million years.
So like a blink of an eye, geologically speaking.
Exactly, not tens of millions like we used to think.
Okay, so this is where it gets crazy, right? Because
Yeah.
we're talking about a few million years,
Right.
which is short.
Very short.
But in that time, you have all these trilobites like coming and going.
Appearing, flourishing, vanishing.
That's like crazy fast evolution.
It is. It challenges our whole idea of the pace of evolution.
Yeah.
And it makes those regional differences we talked about even more significant.
Right, because it's like,
You've got this incredible burst of diversification happening on an already compressed timescale.
It's like an evolutionary pressure cooker.
That's exactly. It was a time of intense experimentation.
So these rocks are telling us all this.
Yes, they hold the clues.
About this, pivotal moment.
To a pivotal chapter in the history of life.
And zircon dating's not the only tool.
No, it's not.
That geologists are using.
Right. We have other techniques, too.
Like what?
Like carbon isotope analysis.
Yeah.
So by studying the ratios of different carbon isotopes, they can reconstruct ancient environments.
Wow.
They can even track changes in the atmosphere
Nice.
and the oceans.
That's incredible.
It's like putting together a giant jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
Each piece adding a little more detail.
And then you've got 3D modeling.
Oh, yeah.
Where you can visualize it.
Visualize it,
oh,
yeah.
Oh.
It's an exciting time to be studying the Grand Canyon. We're moving beyond just describing the rocks.
Wow.
We're recreating these lost worlds.
It's amazing.
It is.
So we started with this deep dive into the Tonto Group.
Yeah.
But it's become a journey through time.
It has.
It's the origins of life, these new technologies. And it's we're still learning so much.
So much.
About the Earth.
And there's so much more to discover.
Yeah, so where do we go from here? What other mysteries are out there? I mean, it just makes you wonder, what else is out there?
Right.
Just hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, waiting to be discovered.
We think of science, and it's oh, labs and equipment.
Yeah, all that fancy stuff.
But nature is
Nature's the biggest lab of all.
The biggest lab.
Yeah.
And the Grand Canyon is proof of that, right?
Absolutely. Every layer of rock, every fossil.
Yeah.
Every little ripple in the sandstone, it's all a clue.
Yeah, and we're still figuring it out.
Still figuring it out.
Like you said, the Frenchman Mountain Dolostone was just added.
Ultimately added, yeah.
To the Tonto Group.
Yeah.
So what made them change their minds?
It was a bunch of things.
Yeah.
New dating techniques.
Okay.
Helped refine the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And then really detailed analysis of the rock types and the fossils.
Okay.
It had a closer connection to the other formations. Than we originally thought.
So it's they're constantly
always revising.
Rewriting the story.
Exactly. It's an ongoing detective story.
Yeah, it's not just okay, we've got it figured out.
No, not at all.
It's
an ongoing process.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's just asking a new question.
Yeah. Or looking at the same evidence with fresh eyes.
That's a good reminder.
It is.
For everyone, really.
For all of us.
Just stay curious.
Stay curious, yeah.
Keep asking questions.
Keep exploring.
Yeah, because who knows? Maybe someone listening to this will be the one to, make the next big discovery.
Maybe they'll find a new fossil.
Yeah.
A new species.
Yeah.
Or some evidence that, completely changes how we think about the Cambrian Explosion.
Totally.
The possibilities are endless.
And, the cool thing about geology is that anyone can do it.
That's true.
You don't need, a degree.
You don't need fancy equipment.
You just need to be curious.
Just curiosity and go outside.
And a sense of wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, next time you're looking at some rocks, whether it's the Grand Canyon or, your local park, just take a second to think about,
Think about the history.
The history. The forces that shaped those rocks.
The creatures that live there.
Yeah. What stories are they telling you?
And remember, those stories are still being written.
Yeah.
New discoveries are happening all the time.
You could be part of it.
You could be part of it, yeah.
So keep exploring. Keep asking questions.
Never lose that sense of awe.
Yeah, that's perfect.
For the natural world.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Grand Canyon's Tonto Group.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring.